Well, I think by the Depression era, um, they didn't go to a cobbler and have their shoes made anymore. I think probably the main source of acquiring them would have been the Sears and Roebuck catalog. The Sears and Roebuck catalog was uh, the shopping mall in those days, on paper, um, that everything was in the Sears and Roebuck catalog that you needed. Um, you could buy shoes, clothes, uh, furniture, farm wagons, uh, radios, just car parts, uh, just anything. Bedding, clothing, fabric. Um, they ordered that mail order, and it was really a happy time when a new Sears and Roebuck catalog was delivered in the mailbox, and everybody wanted to see it all at one time, and just a lot of fun. I can imagine moms and dads having to set up real late at night to get a glimpse of it, because the kids wanted to see everything that was in there. And I think they came originally about twice a year, and of course before they came out there, um, they probably used that Sears and Roebuck catalog for other things also, besides ordering.
After they all got a good look at it.
After they all got a good look at it.
Um, well, that brings to mind several things that you talked about there. Car parts. What good is that if you don't have a car? When did your folks get a car?
Dad bought a new Willys car. That was his first car. Um, right before the Second World War, and he was just learning to drive it. And within 2 weeks, he'd already uh, been hit by, sideswiped by another car on the steepest curve going towards Crossville, called at that time Dead Man's Curve, and actually was hit by another homesteader. Daddy bought his car, and then as soon as the war started, people were really trying to buy cars because they stopped making automobiles and started making tanks and war things. So Daddy was offered a good price for his new car, and he sold it without asking Mama, which didn't go over too well.
When did she learn to drive?
um, Actually, not till I was a senior in college.
But she didn't like losing the independence of having a car in the family?
I know he had to go back, and with some of the money that he got from that Willys, he bought a rambling old car, and she did try to drive it. She was getting her nerve up to try the Willys, but the old one she did not like. She was a little woman. She didn't fit in the front seat. She couldn't hardly see up over the dashboard. And the one time that she got in it to drive it down the driveway, Daddy thought she was going to hit something, so he puts his foot over and instead of hitting the brake pedal, he knocked her foot over on the gas pedal, and so she ran it in the ditch, and that was the end of her driving until I was a senior in college.
Tell us about the the socks you hid under a rock on the way to school.
Oh no. Well, like a lot of kids who wanted to go barefoot in the spring when it got warm enough that I didn't have to wear those ugly, ugly brown cotton socks that came all the way up your thigh and attached to your uh, winter underwear with garters. and you look terrible in. Um, on a warm day, as I walked to school, I stopped where there's an overhanging rock on that hung out over the ditch, and took the socks off and stuck 'em under the rock, and went to school bare-legged and enjoyed every minute of it. But as I came home, I had to stop on that same rock and put my socks back on.
You said your dad was working for how much an hour, and how did that compare out with other families?
He's working for 50 cents a day when he could get it work. For their first Christmas, my mom and dad had 50 cents to spend for Christmas. And since she was pregnant with me, they bought a bag of oranges, because that was a healthy thing to do. So I don't know what his annual income. I would say not more than $400 or $500 a year, if that much.
And she didn't work anywhere?
Absolutely not. Never worked anywhere a day in her life, other than at home. Now, she worked hard at home.
As far as income for the family. What do you think your folks would have done if they hadn't been chosen as homesteaders?
Well, I think they would have stayed where they were with my grandmother at Mayland until Daddy could talk Mama into moving a long way away from her parents. I think they would have gone to either Akron, Ohio, or Battle Creek, Michigan, because Daddy's siblings had already gone north, and they all had good jobs, and I think Daddy would have done that.
You know, there's a lot of criticism about different aspects of the New Deal program. What's your thoughts on it overall, as far as was it the thing to do at that point in time in history?
Well, of course, the homesteads is just a little tiny portion of the New Deal. I think times were just so bad all over that there had to be something done, and whether you call it New Deal or desperation, it was better than what they had. And with all the criticism of it being communistic and socialistic and that sort of thing is beside the point. The people had to have a way to make a living. So I think Roosevelt was very sincere in trying to help the common man. He didn't come from a background that he had any idea how bad things were. But he, with the other men in his brain trust, saw those needs and did a lot of different things. And I know that a lot of people say that the subsistence homesteading program was not successful because it didn't pay the government back for all it cost. But very few things do, as far as I can remember. So I think, and particularly ours here, I think was much more successful than a lot of places. I think if they had been able to stand at the end of it and look back and make decisions on how it would have been run, I think it would have been more successful. But that's just the way life is. We'd like to stand back at the end of our lives and not make any mistakes, but can't do that.
What do you think Eleanor Roosevelt's role was, particularly in subsistence homesteading?
I think she played a big role in that. In fact, I think she led him in his thinking and in his decisions, and she also she aligned herself with people who had studied this kind of thing, who had worked with this kind of thing, and she saw great hope in it. And she was, to me, she was an amazing humanitarian. Just, just a good woman. Um, she didn't come from a poor family like we did. Um, there's a lot of things that our family had that her family didn't have, seemingly, like love and togetherness. But she took the things that she had in her background and used them to help an enormous number of people. And I think one of the ways that she did that was with subsistence homesteading. I know that she was very close to the program up in Arthurdale, another subsistence homesteading in West Virginia. It was the first stranded community. Our homesteads is also a stranded community in subsistence homesteading. There were several different types. Um, but until I think two years before she died, she was almost every year at their high school graduation. She was always interested in their people. She knew them on a first name basis, and she just knew that it was a good program. And she wrote a letter. I mean, she received a letter from one of our homestead ladies here, and she wrote back to her about one of our ladies who became a widow as a result of dynamite blast here on the homesteads. And Eleanor was very sympathetic to that situation too, when the government officials had told Mrs. Hoover that she would have to leave the project because her husband was dead.
What what's your memory of when Roosevelt passed away?
That's the first day I ever saw my daddy cry.